Hey team, hope you're all doing well and staying warm out there with these winter conditions. It's been pretty crazy here in Michigan, and hopefully you're in a warmer climate than the great state of Michigan, where we have right now about a little over a foot of snow on the ground right now. So it's been kind of crazy. But today's video I wanted to go over for those athletes out there that are training for trying to break the sub 150 half marathon. I commend you for going after a time like this. I mean, for athletes that are trying to run this fast, you need to hold 8:23 mile pace for 13.1 miles or 5:13 kilometer pace for 21.1 kilometers. And, you know, as I say in a lot of these other videos, in terms of running faster over the half marathon or marathon distances, you still want to always focus on your volume, but make sure that you're focusing on quality over quantity, because you can still be running plenty of aerobic mileage and just be a very strong, superior, long, slow distance runner. For you to get to a point where you can hold and sustain these paces from start to finish, you have to make sure you're sprinkling in a healthy dose of anaerobic training at your VO2 max, where you're running around 95 to 100% of your max heart rate, and getting that 8:23 mile pace or 5:13 kilometer pace to feel easier for you so that you can sustain your goal race pace longer than your competition. And in a half marathon, you have a little bit more time to make up if you make a mistake, versus if you're training for, or you're trying to run a 5K, a fast 5K, and you go out way too fast. You don't have a lot of time to make up for that. But in a half marathon, you can adjust your intensity in the race and really improve upon that second half of the race and really get to the finish line still in a new personal best. But the things definitely you want to make sure that you're keeping in mind in going after the sub 150 half marathon is proper pacing, not going out too anaerobic and going and redlining too soon in the race and being forced to slow down or having to stop, worst case scenario, in the last half of the race. I always tell runners, if you're trying to run a faster half marathon or any distance on the roads, do the very best you can to even run an even or a negative split. Always running the second half of your race faster than you run the first half is going to help you both psychologically, and you're going to be able to also be able to finish and sustain or even pick up the pace in that second half of your race. I have an athlete that I coach named Hector. He just recently, this morning, ran a 1:37 for the half marathon, running almost 10 minutes faster than his old personal best of 1:46. And it was really cool to see his second half. I talked to him in my message to him the night before was just be conservative in that first half, get out, but focus on the last 6.5 miles of that race. And sure enough, I looked at his splits. He was just constantly dropping down his splits, and even his last 3 miles were running in under 7-minute mile pace. So he did exactly what I told him to do, and obviously he's been putting in the heavy work, ended up running nearly a 10-minute personal best for the half marathon. So again, not getting too hyped up, not getting too excited in the first half of the race, and will really pay huge dividends for you to run under 150 for the half marathon. Again, this is 8:23 mile pace for 13.1 miles or 5:13 kilometer pace for 21.1 kilometers. So some of the workouts I want you thinking about when you're trying to run a sub 150 half marathon. And always keep in mind, a longer buildup is better for a half marathon, minimum 12 weeks, preferably about 20 weeks to prepare properly for the half marathon distance. But in the early stages of your buildup, you should start off doing 5 to 6 1,600 meter repetitions on the track at around threshold effort. So for an athlete trying to break 150, that may mean about 8:08 mile pace or around 5:03 kilometer pace. And then working your way down to where you're doing those repetitions at around 7:05 per rep or around 4:24 per kilometer. Always remember, you're going to give yourself more rest in the early stages of your buildup. So if you're doing repeat 1600s, that may mean 3 to 4 minutes. But when you're midway through a buildup and you're doing those repetitions at 7:05 mile pace or around 4:24 kilometer pace, focus on giving yourself much less rest, 60 seconds rest in between each one of those reps. So the goal is obviously to start off more conservative, give yourself more rest, because again, you're not as anaerobically fit. You're not going to be able to really sustain super fast paces in the early stages of your buildup. you're going to need more rest because, again, it takes time for your body to adapt. And the athletes that are trying to run under 150 for the half marathon, you got to give yourself time to adapt to the hard anaerobic workouts you're doing. And remember, it takes about 3 weeks to a month for your body to adapt to any stress load you're placing on it. So you do want a longer buildup versus a shorter buildup where you're trying to rush all of your fitness and trying to get in superb shape in a matter of several weeks versus several months. So for the athlete that's trying to break 150, that's where I would start off. Start off doing 1,600 meter, 5 to 6 1,600 meter reps, and you may need to start off doing 3 to 4 1,600 meter reps, and then working your way to adding on an additional 1 to 2 as you get fitter. And that's kind of how the training plans and the running courses that I have on RunDreamAchieve.com, where I talk about that, where I discuss that, we're focusing on periodization, where you want to gradually build your volume, build your intensity up, and then as you get fitter and you move into the taper phase, we do a 10-day taper. So if in the past, as you've been training for the half marathon, if you've been feeling flat going into your races, don't do a 3-week taper. Okay, I'm not saying it doesn't work for a lot of athletes, but consider doing a 10-day taper. Okay, 10 days is a great amount of time, plenty of time for your body to recover from the hard workouts you've been doing in the past. Other types of workouts that I did to help me run 107.06 for the half marathon was I love doing 1,200 meter repetitions, 3-lap reps, anywhere from 5 to 10 1,200 meter reps. For the athlete that's trying to break 150, that might mean starting off again, working at threshold effort, running around 6:04 per 1,200 meter rep. And then again, like I said before, 2 to 3 minutes of recovery between each repetition, the early stages of your buildup, and then working your way down to around 5:17 to 5:20 per rep, and then giving yourself 60 seconds rest. So those are the types of things these types of really fast anaerobic workouts definitely are key for you to run under the 150 half marathon barrier. If you're doing 800 meter reps, start off doing at threshold effort, running around 403, then dropping that down to around 332 to 335 per rep. So again, it's being patient with your buildup, being consistent and persistent with your training, and allowing your body enough time to adapt to the workouts you're doing. Because consistency is everything. Even if you have a few bad workouts or a few bad races or time trials along the way, just remember every workout builds upon itself. Okay, if you're trying to run a 149.59, you do have to spend some time not only running at VO2 max effort, but you also want to make sure that you're extending the duration of these tempo runs you're doing. Sometimes, and a lot of times, athletes just aren't spending enough time running at their anaerobic threshold or lactate threshold, tempo effort, running at around 85 to 88% of their max heart rate. A 3 to 4 mile tempo run is great if you're training for maybe a mile or a 3K or a 5K. But when you're training for a half marathon and you're trying to run under an hour and 50 minutes, you have to make sure that you extend that time, getting that tempo run out to around 7 to 9 to 10 miles in length. What helped me out the most was my tempo runs usually would range anywhere from around 7 to 10 miles, so out to around 16 kilometers. And it does take time to build up to that, so be patient with yourself. Okay, first get adapted and adjust yourself to running at 3 miles at your anaerobic threshold first, and then gradually add in a couple extra miles as you go along and throughout your buildup. That's the same philosophy I have in these training plans and when I coach my athletes as well. We work on periodization. Give yourself enough time to adapt to each specific intensity before you move to the next intensity, or being willing to adapt to a certain amount of volume that you're doing before you start moving to increased amounts of volume. So it's really about proper planning in your buildup, finding a flat, fast course. And remember, there's no such thing as a fast course unless the athlete's in superior shape. So make sure you're finding, not only doing your homework and training, but make sure that you're finding a course that is conducive for you to run the fastest possible time. And in this case, to run a 149.59, you don't want to pick a hilly or a rolling terrain type course. You still could do it, but it's much more difficult in order to break a 150 half marathon running on these types of courses. Definitely work on your leg turnover and your speed. So doing those 200s, starting off maybe a threshold around 56 seconds, working down to 49 seconds. If you're doing 300-meter reps, if you're trying to break 150, start off doing around 124 and then working your way down to 113. Same with 400-meter reps. Start off running around 152 and then working your way down to 138 per rep. And again, more rest in the beginning, much less rest as you get much fitter and you're like midway through a build-up and you're starting to go into the latter stages of a training block. Definitely give yourself much less rest and your reps are going to be much faster. Hope these tips will help you get under the 150 half marathon barrier. Make sure you're visualizing seeing yourself doing this. You have to spend a few minutes each day visualizing yourself running at the level that you're dreaming about. You have to see this before it's actually a reality in your life. So the best marathoners, the best long distance, the best mid-distance athletes always focus on both mental as well as physical training. You combine both of these together and you are definitely going to set yourself up for success and set a new personal best. I know you can break 1 hour and 50 minutes for the half marathon, and I hope these tips are helpful for all of you. If you're brand new to the channel, hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so when I make a new video, you'll be notified of it. Check out the resources below these videos. They're there to help you get to the next level in your training and racing. And I will talk to you guys and gals all in the next video.